in this conversation, you've mentioned, or when I've mentioned it, or whether it be about the power of the quality of your thinking, or manifestation, or you mentioned Tony Robbins. But you've also referenced your religious faith, and I'm fascinated because usually what I hear is one or the other. And full disclosure, I guess the answer to my question I asked you about philosophy or belief that has radically changed is that up until maybe 12, 13 years ago, I believed in God, in my version of it. I was never religious. I wasn't raised religiously, but I had a sort of hardcore belief in what I perceived God to be. And that has completely shifted to not.
To not believing at all.
To not believing at all.
Wow.
So I went from what I always say, I went from being an agnostic believer to an agnostic atheist. Because we're all agnostic no matter what. No matter whether you're very religious and you believe, or you're a complete atheist, nobody knows.
Yeah.
So the true definition of agnostic is to not know. So I went from being an agnostic believer to an agnostic atheist, where I just don't believe any of that anymore.
Why? What changed?
I don't mean to be flippant, but I saw a comedian.
A comedian changed your view on God?
He did. Lewis Black. You know who Lewis Black is?
No.
He said, I understand the people who are super religious and that believe in blah, 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 but I don't, because I have thoughts. And he's being flippant about it, but it's like the more I really started to think about what that belief entailed in terms of my intellect and in terms of science and in terms of all kinds of things, the more I started to go, none of that makes sense to me anymore. And this thing happened, because I think I even used to feel fearful. Like when I would know someone who was an atheist, there was something I feared about it. Like, well, if you don't believe in God, like, what do you have? What? It's just chaos, right? And so when I started to acknowledge in my own mind that I didn't believe in that stuff anymore, instead of fear, I was met with relief. I was met with I was sort of fueled with this sense that if you believe that this is our journey and that when it's over, and there is no afterlife and there is none of that, instead of it being such a bummer, it's like, it's all the more reason why choose your moments wisely. I don't believe that there's another act, there's another round. The only part of that I hate is that I used to believe that I would be reunited with my father, and my mom died a few years ago. But I remember for decades having this thought that even in the worst of fear of death, that I'd be with my father, I'd see my father again. I don't believe that anymore, and it's okay for me. What I am fascinated by, as someone who's now believed in not believing for over a decade, is how someone like you mixes that into a cocktail. Because it's really kind of refreshing. I love that you still have, at least you seem to have a sense of faith that you were probably raised with, but because a lot of people who are very religious won't even think about talking about stuff like manifestation or your thought. Yeah, because they know it's all God's plan. It's all in the hands of God.
Yeah, I think that we have
relieving
really
yourself of all responsibility.
We're powerful beings, and we were created as powerful beings. So I feel like just like you have a talent to write and sing and produce, there's that was given to you, but you also had to cultivate it. Right? So I look at manifesting as something that we're cultivating. We're getting strong with our connection. To me, it's with God and with, the universe. It does get a little weird sometimes because I studied Dr. Joe Dispenza. Are you familiar with him?
Yeah, a little bit.
And so when I'm meditating, I also am blending it as like my prayer. because I believe that I'm sending the message out into the universe and out to God. And I just have watched, like every time I've prayed, I'm like, God, I'm scared. I don't know what to do with my mom next. They told me her tumor is growing. Please tell me what to do. And I would pray. And we had such an insane connection. It was almost like a lightning rod of some kind. And then I'd go, just an example, I went on my computer one day after I said that. And I'm on the computer and a pop-up comes up and it's the side effects of chemo. I'm like, oh, I know those. Vomit, blah, blah, blah. And somebody said, no, you don't. Look. And so I looked and I'm reading them and I'm like, oh, I didn't know all of these side effects. And then I popped up the side effects of tumor regrowth. Something told me to do that. Again, I'm just guided.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, these look exactly the same. So the side effects of chemo and the side effects of tumor regrowth, or the symptoms of regrowth, match. So why do we think it's the tumor when it could just be the chemo? What if we need a detoxer off of the chemo? And so that sent
poison.
That sent me down a whole other path where I took her to Mexico. And again, just somebody brought into my show. Their wife was in the green room. It was meant to be that day. And she told me about this facility. We took my mom. And my mom got 5 years with stage 4 brain cancer. And the radiologist at Cedars was like, I heavily believe that the success you guys had was due to a lot of those treatments you guys did in Mexico. And what were we doing? We were optimizing her immune system to handle what was going on. And so, but I would ask and it would come. And the same thing with my dad. Like, I was like, where is he? And like, I would hear, I would know. I would tell my mom from the time I was little, Mom, he's stuck at the other mall. He can't get to us. I would tug on her pants where everyone's worried. That was before phones. And we would find out he had a flat tire and he was at the other mall. He got confused and he went to the wrong place. Mm-hmm. And so I've just watched my own experiences, and it's like such an insane connection that I know is there for me.
It's a comfort.
100%, but it's real. And then how do you explain, like, my dad flatlined and died once, and he went to another world, and he's like, it's so beautiful. He didn't want to come back. But then he saw me crying over his bed, begging him, and he came back, he said. How do you explain Anita Morjani's story, Dying to Be Me, where she went to the other side, fully died. She saw and heard in a whole other room. She was in one hospital room, and down the hall, the doctors are talking to her husband and said, they're reading her last rites, like, she's gone. And then she comes back. Like, you can't explain a lot of these phenomena.
Well, I mean, science can.
And miracles.
Science can explain some of that, most of that. And that's where you either go, oh yeah, I still don't believe that science can explain that. Or you, like me, when I go, well, but it's brainwaves that don't necessarily, or I believe the scientific explanation for those phenomenons, as opposed to, I just have way too many questions over my life that I went, oh, the answer is that I don't believe in that other stuff anymore.
Yeah. What about like the healing saint in our church, Saint Nectarios, when he lays hands on somebody, or did, and he would heal them? Is that science?
I mean, this is a different episode, separate episode.
So listen, I respect whatever anybody believes. You want to do a shot, you want to not believe in God. Everybody, you want to, throw your kid in the pool and let them learn that way. I want to do it in a ginger. Whatever anybody wants to do, I'm good with.
Yeah.
I think that we all have our journeys. For me, I know that I've seen the strongest connection that I've had, and it's helped me through every crisis with my mom, with myself, my dad. It's undeniable, and my faith has carried me through so many things. And yes, I know that God gave me powerful abilities to see things that maybe other people don't see, or access that part of our brain that can. All of us have so many powers we don't even give ourselves credit for. So, yeah.
I guess the best way I can answer what you just asked me with the belief system that I have now, or the lack of belief system I have now. And again, I'm sure people can cherry pick all day long, but generally speaking, so let's just say, and there are many examples of this. Let's say there's a bus carrying 20 kids that has a horrible accident, and everyone is killed but one child. The religious people who say that God saved that child, if I were to ask them, so he
What
said,
about the
fuck you
others?
to the other 19, they don't want to have that conversation.
Yeah.
And what I won't accept at this stage of my life is only God knows, or, I had somebody in my life for years who I got into this conversation because he was a very religious Christian man. And when I finally started to ask these questions, he finally one day said to me, he said, Richard, God answers every prayer. It's just that sometimes the answer is no. And I went,
Oof.
That's bullshit. You don't get me with that one. I'm sorry. Then he's an asshole. So that's when I started to shift and go, you know what? I feel better believing in science and believing in free will completely, and believing in coincidence, and not believing in divine intervention, or because I don't feel it anymore. My whole being goes, no, just don't feel it.
Yeah.
I actually envy those who feel it, because I used to feel it. And I love that people have a sense of comfort and, a go-to. I don't disparage it. The only time I disparage or really rail against it is when people want to use their religious beliefs to inform public policy, or, but
Or hurt people.
Yeah, or hurt people. There's plenty of that too. But it's fascinating to me, and I love that. I particularly admire your. I use everything. I let it all influence me.
I remember when my mom was dying. We still have on the chalkboard in my house, Litsa is a miracle in progress, and I was walking both paths. I was like, oh God, come on. I know we can do this. I'm having so many we can do this. Let her be the example, that possibility, to believe in possibility. And I used to tell my mom, I'm like, you're a miracle. Every day, you're a miracle. You're a miracle. And I was doing all the things, and healings and all the stuff. And I just was like, okay, I know we have to walk both lines because we don't know what the ending to the story is. So I am going to choose to believe that she's going to be a miracle and that she's going to get out of this bed magically, just like the other people you hear in life, these spontaneous remissions. Why can't she get it? But at the same time, I'm also going to walk this path of a little bit of reality, and knowing that that might not be her story, but we've already had an incredible story. Mm-hmm. So until the fat lady sings, I don't know what's going to happen. And we just kept walking and walking and walking and walking it. And then she took her last breaths on Easter. And I was like, oh, God took her on his holiest day. He loved her that much that he gave her. Sorry.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
He gave her a hero's ending. Why else would he take her on his holiest day, So, sorry.
No, that's beautiful.
But I think you have to walk both paths.
It sounds like you don't have regret about in your relationship with your mom.
Oh my God, no.
Because I remember when we were trying to get together a couple times, it was right at the end of that. What year did she pass?
2021.
Yeah. So we were in touch a little bit, and I know I watched you through some of that journey.
Yeah.
And I had a similar thing with my mom.
I did everything I could. And the biggest thing I did was I asked her for forgiveness, which was really scary and really hard because I was definitely short and mean at times.
Sure.
5 years of taking care of somebody and their brain isn't working right sometimes. And I didn't understand fully, the doctors don't have enough time to explain to you sometimes like what's happening because they're not living with you to see that they're turning on all the flames and then they're putting up the heat when it's, hot and just weird things that they're doing. So there were moments and I had to like muster up the courage to ask her for forgiveness. And I filmed it, thank God, so I can remember.
That's so great. I recorded like my last 10 conversations with my mom.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And you have it forever.
I do. And there were so many great things, but there was a point where, and she had lung cancer, which is similar. We'll talk about it after, but it was very almost identical situation. She was given no time. She was stage 4, given 6 months. She lived 6 years.
Wow.
And because Daisy and I went into action against Western medicine,
is it against or is it collaborating?
Collaborating.
I would say
collaborative. Yes. Thank you.
This is how I look at it. I'm the coach of the New England Patriots.
Okay.
I'm not putting my kicker on offense. I'm not putting my offense on defense. I know where to use everybody and in what position.
Yes.
I'm the coach.
Right.
And so that's what you do. I love my Western doctors for what they're good at, but I now know what they're not.
Well, they're most of the most brilliant oncologists, for example, had 0 training in nutrition in medical school. Yeah. So we radically changed her diet. There were some other things that we did that were just lucky accidents of things we heard about that really, really worked. Okay, or maybe.
Little help along the way.
And her oncologist would say to me, and I didn't tell him the other stuff we were doing.
You can't.
And he would just say to me, I've never seen anything like it. She's 80 years old. She got diagnosed when she was 80.
Wow.
And he said, I've never seen anything like this. Her tumors are shrinking.
Did you do marijuana oil?
Yes.
I knew it.
Yep.
That's what I did with my mom too.
One of many things.